Hello and welcome to the next episode of my tutorial series describing FM sound design on the Sonicware Liven XFM. In the previous tutorials we've covered an overview of the panel and we've gone through the morphing and non-morphing sound engines and how those sounds can be modified. None of this has required any understanding of FM synthesis. Today we're going to move into talking about the FM edit mode, which gives you full access to the actual FM parameters and full sound design capability. The mode is accessible by pressing function and edit, at which point we can pick which bank and which preset we are going to edit. In this case, I'm not actually going to save this, so I'm going to load the default. Now, you may wonder, how do I know what the controls are? Well, the answer is that there is an overlay that is provided. The overlay lists all of the individual functions. I'm going to talk about those functions that are available here, and hopefully that's going to give you a flavor for how the sound design is done. Then I'm going to go into actually making some FM sounds from scratch. On the subject of from scratch, we can press init. We now have a single oscillator turned up. The first thing to note about the way this engine works is that there is only one algorithm in the traditional sense, and in that algorithm every operator is connected to every other operator. This is going to become much clearer as we proceed to learn FM synthesis in more detail. But unlike something like the DX7, where there are specific sets of connectivity between the operators, in this synthesizer, all four operators are connected to all four operators. That means including themselves, and they are all connected to the mixer. Okay, first thing to call out, you may note that there is something which says algo here, and algo does indeed mean algorithm. So if you want a quick way of getting some basic sounds put together, you can actually press algo and select one of several algorithms which are described in the manual. In this case, we're not going to do that, so we're going to hit cancel, and nothing has happened. So now I'm going to talk through the panel. This upper section, known as the quick edit section, gives us access directly, irrespective of the state of the synthesizer, to mixer levels for each one of the operators. So, operator 2 up, operator 3 up, operator 4 up. They all sound the same at the moment. We have these two buttons, page 1 and page 2. Notice page 2 is in highlighted text. So each function on page 1 has the primary function, on page 2 has the secondary function. In this case, the secondary function of this knob is feedback. So this is setting the FM feedback amount. So notice that I always have access to these parameters for all of these operators. The second row, again, important FM sound design parameters. First, the ratio. So the ratio here will be the multiplier by which the actual pitch the oscillator makes compares to the reference pitch, or the fundamental. So if I play 0.5, as in 50% the frequency, or 1 octave below, octave, second harmonic, third, fourth, fifth, and so forth. We have a second control, which is fine-tuning, which allows us to set fractional values all the way up to 1 octave above. This is available to us for each of the operators. At the moment I only have operator 1 turned up, so let's have operator 1 one time. Operator 2, which isn't playing, can be the octave. Operator 3 can be the third harmonic, operator 4 can be the fourth harmonic. So these are all going to be in tune, representing harmonics. So now can turn up the other operators. So I already have something which is more interesting than just a single oscillator, but I'm going to go back to a single oscillator. Secondary functions available here. One of them is level. Level sounds a little confusing because you think I have level knobs up here. Well, what actually happens here is level on this second row adjusts the output level of the operators. The operator's output is used to modulate other operators based on a receive level. So you can think of it as the product of the send level and the receive level is the amount of modulation that is going to occur. So when you adjust this level, it is going to adjust the overall volume of that sound for that operator if it goes to the mixer, but also the overall level of modulation that it's providing. So in other words, adjusting this level will adjust the volume of the sound, and it will adjust the amount of modulation it causes. Adjusting this level will only adjust the volume of the sound. The second parameter here is detune. Detune allows us to deviate from the pitch set in the ratio and fine tune. The reason you might want to do this is often you just want to take something a little bit off pitch, and the ratio and fine tune is intended to pick a specific frequency. So detune is a finer grained adjustment. And again, this is available to us for each one of the operators. So without actually digging into any of the other functions of the synthesizer, we have access to a relatively large number of parameters. This allows us also here to adjust the velocity of the sound when we introduce velocity sensitivity. So I'm going to jump to the lower half of the synthesizer. I've already introduced the page select, indicating the function of these knobs. This is the operator select. So when we select an operator, all of these lower parameters apply to that operator. So you'll often be switching between operators to make various changes. There is also a mixer mode. So the mixer gives us access to the mixer send levels, and as we've seen, just like these knobs, the first one is 127, the other ones are 0. This is a good time maybe to mention that when editing these values, you use these two controls. One of them is a knob. It allows you to make direct adjustments. You can turn latching on and off if you wish. You also have an encoder, which will make incremental adjustments. So my preference is not to have latching on and to use the encoder when I need to make an incremental adjustment instead of an absolute adjustment. This is also, for certain parameters such as ratio, a way of fine-tuning. So note that here we only have ratio and frequency. There is no fine-tune because fine-tune is part of that parameter. So the mixer section, we have the mixer send levels. You'll note that as we proceed through, the display is blank. Why? Because the mixer does not have a frequency ratio, nor can it have a fixed frequency. It has an overall level that you can tweak, but it cannot receive a pitch EG. You cannot detune it, nor does it have curves to set for the envelope. The mixer does not have velocity sensitivity and so forth. What the mixer does have is actually another envelope. I will go back to describing this at a later stage, but the envelope in the mixer is actually intended to set pitch, and it can be used to adjust the pitch as the sound plays of any one of the operator, a useful sound design feature. The mixer can be thought of as an odd one out here, so I'm going to jump back to operator 1. So what am I setting here? Operator 1, we're setting the receive levels of the modulation. So what does this mean? Well, operator 1 is receiving a -1, it's receiving a negative modulation from itself. This is the feedback path. So in the same way as I could have turned that knob, I can now use the value adjustment here. Oh, I must have turned its level down. Let me see. There it is. So I accidentally turned the level down when I was adjusting something else. So I'm now adjusting the feedback amount for that operator through this lower panel. I can also adjust how much operator 2 modulates operator 1, or how much operator 3 modulates operator 1. So you can see that I can end up with some quite unusual tones pretty quickly, and this is what we'll be discussing when we talk about FM synthesis in general. So the frequency is accessible here. We also have the opportunity to set the frequency to a fixed pitch. So when we set fixed to on, now the frequency is fixed. In this case, 440 Hertz. Fixed is not what I really want to do at the moment. So let's jump back. We have the level, which corresponds to the second row send level. We have a way to set the pitch EG from the mixer to send it to any given operator. We have access to the same detune function that you have a direct knob for. We have an ability to set the up curve and down curve. This affects the shape of the envelope, whether you want it to be straight or logarithmic or exponential. We have access to here the attack, decay, sustain, release levels. So the envelope that's provided here always starts at 0. It then rises to the attack level in the attack time. It then rises or falls to the decay level in the decay time. It rises or falls to the sustain level where it stays in the sustain time. And then it rises or falls to the release level in the release time. So there's quite a lot of flexibility compared to your standard ADSR envelope. Next parameter is time scaling. This allows us to adjust as the pitch gets higher. Do we make the times of the envelope get shorter? For some instruments, especially stringed instruments, the sound is shorter as you get higher pitched. So time scale for this operator is how that's done. The next parameters, we have gain, low gain, left gain and right gain rather. So left gain means that at the left extent of the keyboard, with respect to the scaling position, which is the point that we're looking at, whether the sound becomes louder or quieter, depending where we set this. So this means that as we go into the bass, the sound gets quieter. I could adjust such that the sound gets higher in the treble and lower in the bass. Okay, so this allows us to adjust the ratio of the volumes of the operator as we play up and down the keyboard, which reflects a lot of the behavior of acoustic instruments. We have the scaling position, which adjusts where the midpoint of that scaling is, and we have curve adjustments, so we can select whether that scaling is linear or is exponential or, I think, logarithmic. So I think now we have covered all of the parameters. We haven't actually really designed a sound, but this is where the core of this series of tutorials is supposed to begin. My intent is to start by taking one operator and seeing how far we can get in designing a sound. Then see what happens when we add a second operator, then a third operator, then a fourth operator, and hopefully by the end of it you'll get a good picture of how you can design sounds on an FM synth, specifically the Sonicware Liven XFM, but beyond that, any FM synthesizer the principles should be applicable to. Okay, so thank you very much for watching, and I hope you tune in next time for the beginning of the meat of the FM synthesis tutorial. Thank you.